The red smoke rises and the curtain falls on the Joao Klauss era in St. Louis. And that is your moment of silence. We'll have much more to talk about with Joao Klauss and where he is going, and the Brazilian that is replacing him on the roster. That just coming through this afternoon. Where does St. Louis's attack go without Joao Klauss? New inbound signings beyond just what's been announced today. We've got one coming up pretty soon, I feel, and another one that's been rumored for a while that we'll talk about here that broke since our last episode. We also got to talk about a mixed bag of a preseason game with RB New York. Also, a preview of a newer, younger St. Louis City 2 as the schedule has been released. We'll give you a preview of all that, plus more on this edition of Red Smoke Rising. I'm your host, not just your soccer zombie, but also the Drogba of Dogtown, Tom Franklin. And I am joined by the Ronaldo of Bethalto, Jeremy Clements. Jeremy, how we doing tonight?
All things considered, doing all right. A big day of city news, the end of one era, but the start of, well, maybe the continuation of the Ray and DeMay era. So we'll see what we got moving forward on that one, boys.
And I gave you some big shoes to fill because I already called you Ronaldo, so you got to live up to that.
That was a mistake.
Yeah. But we also are joined by the Chris Wood of Crestwood, Jake Henry. Jake, how we doing tonight?
Hello, I'm doing well. You can't see me for whatever reason, but I am here.
You are here. We see you on camera. It's just it's never perfect in the podcasting world. You know, sometimes you muted by accident. Sometimes your camera doesn't show up and then it's showing to the rest of the world. It's an imperfect world we live in, guys. Let's just face it. Of course, I want to welcome you if you're listening to the audio version of this podcast as well. You can find it on all of your favorite podcast platforms. I want to give a big thanks to our man behind the curtain, popping up your comments as well as running graphics behind the scenes. The dog leash of the Metro East, Chris Gebhardt. I couldn't find a rhyme for Belleville, so I had to go into the Liverpool bag for that one. But thank you very much, Chris, for helping us stay on track, and thank you in the chat as well, as we will be monitoring you throughout the show, and also in our final third as well. We'll get to share some Joao Klauss memories. So start thinking about your favorite Joao Klauss moments in St. Louis and get those ready, because when we go into the final third, after the podcast portion is over, we're going to talk about some of our favorite Joao Klauss memories. We're also going to talk about some GAM. Jeremy's going to try to explain the world of GAM to us. Good luck, Jeremy. I believe in you, but it's not easy. It is not easy. Also want to let you know that this is the last episode on the Soccer Zombie YouTube. So I am going to drop the proper YouTube channel in the chat. It'll pop up hopefully in a little moment. Follow STL Soccer News on YouTube, because after today, if you want to watch this show on YouTube, that is the only place that you can catch it, is the STL Soccer News YouTube. We're also going to be on X as well, on the Red Smoke Rising account. And also, we have an announcement to make, and it is related to our friends at Pat Connolly Tavern, located at the corner of Oakland and Tam in beautiful Dogtown, a St. Louis institution since 1942. And it is also going to be the home of a live Red Smoke Rising episode on February 10th. We are going to be live in person in Pat Connolly Tavern, sitting, right by the window that you saw just a little while ago. So if you want to join us for the stream, feel free. But if you want to join us in person as well, we'd love to see you there as well. February 10th, 8 p.m., Pat Connolly Tavern. We are truly, truly going live. So in the meantime, though, we are online for you here today, and we have to talk about Joao Klauss. So Joao Klauss, we had heard last week that he might be heading out of St. Louis, going to LA Galaxy. Well, that has been confirmed today. LA Galaxy acquiring Joao Klauss from St. Louis City in a cash-for type of a deal. Those are Jake's favorite, by the way. Jake always follows our cash-furs for us. But we are getting, and when I say we, I mean St. Louis City, $2.375 million, so a little higher than the numbers that had been rumored that we'd be getting from the LA Galaxy here. And Jeremy, just to give us a little bit of a taste of GAM and how that works. This is money that is actual cash money that we're getting, but we could convert it to GAM, right?
That's correct. MLS rules allow clubs to convert up to $3 million from sales and transfers to GAM. So the $2.375 million we received for Klauss, a club record for an outgoing sale of a player or a trade in this case, can be fully converted and thrown into the coffers to do things like buy down player contracts or spend on roster improvements.
Or buy his replacement. Which right now there's no rumors or any mention as to who could potentially replace him. But Joao Klauss, all-time leading scorer for St. Louis City, also originally the most expensive transfer that we know of at this point, a little over $3 million that it cost for St. Louis to bring him in here. And Jake, this is kind of the I don't want to call this like the sunsetting of an era, because I know St. Louis is doing the STL Rising thing this year, but it really does feel more and more, Jake, like we are definitely moving on from that expansion season with Klauss's departure.
For sure. I do want to make note that I find it interesting that we have the our two strikers that season have now been sold off for a total of like over $4 million. So
That's right.
That'll be just something to look back on. But going back to your point, it was a fun era for Klauss and for us to watch Klauss, but I'm cautiously optimistic for what's next.
I am too, and it was a situation with Klauss where he would have been a TAM striker this year because of the way the transfer fee worked out. Would have been a pretty good TAM striker for us had he stayed around, but he was in the last year of his deal. And Jeremy, we're kind of talking about a team in transition here. So would there have been even any guarantees he would have stayed after St. Louis this season? Personally, I don't think so.
No, I mean, you might as well jump right into that conversation, and full credit to Matt Baker for his reporting late last offseason, or early in the offseason, late last season. For those that didn't or have not followed Matt and the guys on Flyover, Matt reported that there was a fine issued to Joao Klauss at the end of the season because he was going to miss the postseason training. By all accounts, that certainly played into this situation that has now led to his exit. But to your point, Tom, no, there was no guarantee that he would have stayed in St. Louis beyond this season. It was a good deal as a TAM striker. I think we all had agreed previously in multiple conversations, whether it's on the show or in our chats, talking about Klauss, that it was a great situation for City to be in. And interestingly enough, I find it fascinating that the Galaxy are in that same situation where they can't amortize his transfer fee over the course of one season. So he will occupy a DP slot for the Galaxy. But there is conversation out west that, he would be tammable in the future. And maybe that's the way the Galaxy go if he hits the ground running out in Carson.
Well, and of course, remember, he is essentially replacing Ricky Puig, who is going to be out for the entirety of 2026. So I guess you can look at their situation and say, okay, we can afford to have a DP on our roster for one season, and then Ricky Puig comes back, and maybe, as you said, they can buy down his contract to where he fits, into the roster and the roster rules a little bit. Greg Vanney, the head coach for LA Galaxy, was quoted on Joao Klauss before the signing became official, calling Klauss a talented striker, a big target, got good feet, an interesting option. And he thinks he gives them some uniqueness at the top. And that's kind of what I want to talk about now a little bit, is his legacy in St. Louis. So Joao Klauss, for anyone that has watched St. Louis City for more than 5 minutes, he is a very divisive player over the course of time. Now, I feel as 2025 went on, he got into fans' good graces again, but there was a time for a long time where Joao Klauss was, for some fans, the source of all our problems, which, as we all know, there's more than more than Joao Klauss that we've had problems with the last couple of years. But they point to his, goal droughts, where he would go through long stretches where he just couldn't buy a goal. It looked like his confidence was down. And look, as someone that was a striker growing up, not a great striker, but I was a striker growing up. Confidence is everything, when you're a striker. And so if you're not scoring, it feels like you'll never score again, if you keep, going through long streaks like that. And also just, he could have other stuff going on too. Like he, as we all know, he didn't like Bradley Carnell very much. And he made that very clear when they played earlier this year. So you have to wonder, what, maybe there was some other stuff going on with Klauss that affected some of his consistency a little bit. But overall, his body of work, when you look at it, again, he's the leading goal scorer for St. Louis City of all time. And this was a St. Louis City team that, in that first season was just, scoring goals, just out of habit. So, and then the other thing too with Klauss is the thing that people don't see with Klauss, all of his detractors, the ones that call him Bambi, the ones that call him giraffe legs, they don't see the stuff that he does away from the ball, where, and again, one of my moments that I'm going to talk about, whenever we get to the final third is the Willie Agata body in Kansas in 2024 will remain forever seared in my memory. And one reason for that is just because it exemplifies the type of player that Joao Klauss was, that false nine, the one that can get into, the dirty areas a little bit, that isn't afraid to go back and dip back into the midfield and try to win a ball back. In that particular play, he helped set up a Celio Pompeu goal. That's just kind of the striker that he was. He does a lot of things that don't show up on a stat sheet so much, unless they're into analytics and XG, which he's always, performed very well at. But definitely a very divisive figure in St. Louis soccer history. One that I personally will miss. If nothing else, Jeremy, you've had a chance to meet him in person, and he is a very fun guy, and by all accounts, a really good locker room guy.
Yeah, I mean, he was extremely personable, approachable. From the encounter that I had with him, which I'll get into in the final third, it was hilarious. It was just a really hilarious moment between him and Simon Betcher, and we've seen, on record from the club through their social media accounts that kind of bromance. We always joked about like a buddy cop movie kind of thing going on with him. But I think if you're talking about the why this makes sense for the Galaxy. So Ricky Puig being placed on the season-ending injury list today frees up a DP spot. There's a side that's going to need somebody to put the ball in the net. I think they're still trying to find the goals that Dejan Joveljic used to score for them. He's at Sporting KC still, I believe. But, I mean, if you look at where they were last year, Nascimento wasn't really what they expected, didn't have a tremendous season for them, and neither did Christian Ramirez. So that's the why behind it. Not only replacing Ricky Puig, but they need to find a guy who can score. And I know that he's not been a prolific scorer, and I think that's part of where my fundamental flaw with the way St. Louis has always viewed Klauss is if you looked at his career history, he was never a prolific scorer. So the expectation that he was going to come in and be one made no sense from the jump, in my opinion. I don't think he's going to go score 20 goals in LA, but is 15 a reasonable target with service from Paintsel and Peck? Yeah, absolutely. But that's the why it makes sense for LA to go out and do this. You have the money, you have the DP spot, and you have the need.
You absolutely do. And you've been kind of doing some monitoring of Galaxy podcasts, and I understand he's already a divisive figure in LA.
Yeah, listened to News Across the Galaxy last night with my buddy Edgar Zaniga. That podcast, the guys on there, Eddie and Brian, were I'd say a little bit more reserved. They're willing to give him a chance, but we're not sold. Did not seem convinced that this was the move. They are disappointed that they didn't go sign a 10 as opposed to a 9. However, Lacuna Galaxiana, those guys, they seemed much more upbeat about it, said it made sense, and seemed optimistic about what they think Klauss can bring to the Galaxy. I'm curious, Jake, what do you think Klauss brings to the Galaxy?
I think he brings the same stuff he brought here, and that is what we've gone over. I mean, just streakiness and just the needs. I don't want to say he needs luck, but he knows where. Like everything you've been saying is, just everything you've been saying is what to expect, and that's you know what kind of player he is by now because he's 28. So.
Yeah, exactly. He is what he is at this point. And, but I will ask you, Jake, I mean, so, Joao Klauss, we're talking about how he contributes on the field besides goals. He's, that false 9 type. And I keep thinking back, Jake, to the scene from Moneyball, we'll replace him in the aggregate. So how does St. Louis replace a guy like Klauss, Jake? Do we try to find another Klauss, or is it time for a new dimension as a 9?
I think we got to find a new. Well, it all really goes back to what Demet wants to play. So we don't entirely know that. So it's kind of hard to answer that question right now.
Yeah.
But like maybe a week into the season, 2 weeks into the season, we might be able to circle back on this conversation and think, what kind of replacement do we need for Klauss in this system?
Yeah, and I will say Tom Bogert did report that City isn't done this window if Klauss leaves. I've also heard that City would be looking to fill his spot directly some way, somehow. It's just that we don't know how they're going to fill that at this point. But it'll be, I mean, right now the replacements are Simon Betcher, who... another divisive figure in speaking of streaky, that's Simon right there. And then you still have Seti Toykert, who, I don't think he's a true lone striker type. He's someone that always has struck me as someone that needs a second striker to play off of. And of course, he's still, getting back to full health himself too. So can you really lean on him so much? And then beyond that, like, do we put McSorley up there? Because he was, for City 2, he was a striker for a long time before they kind of shifted him out to the wing, as last season, where he's kind of found a home. So it'll be interesting to see how we replace him, and it'll be interesting to see what he and his Bambi legs do in L.A. With Ricky Pujol, but having Paintsel and Petch as his line mates. But we do have a replacement. We have another Brazilian on the roster now. Literally on the same day that Klauss comes out, we bring in a new left back. We actually have left back depth for the first time since we all thought Selmir Pedro was going to be something. By the way, it is 8:20. There is your Selmir Pedro reference for this episode. Take a drink if you were waiting for that. Jake's grabbing his right now. He's prepared. But yes, we have Rafael Santos signing a multi-year contract. He last played for Colorado Rapids, but was a longtime member of Orlando City. And so, Jeremy, this is a free agent signing. And would this be the first free agent signing we've had since Nerwinski? Or was Morales technically a free agent?
So here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say the MLS rules are too damn complicated for me to tell you the answer to that straight up because
Matt Baker.
But yeah, we need Matt. Yeah, someone get Matt Baker on the horn. Because no, I don't know. He was without a club, but I would assume eligible for free agency because he's over 24, and he's got more than 3 or 4 years of service. So technically a free agent, but I would have to go back and determine and look at who was a free agent when. I'm assuming Morales would have as well. But that aside is a good shout. But no, he's going to bring versatility. He's a dynamic attacking fullback. Chris Gebhardt, St. Louis Soccer News. Go check out his Twitter feed. I think he might have put him on Blue Sky as well. But he's got some great videos highlighting moments that, at least for me, make me excited to see what this guy can do. The question that I have for both of you guys, that he's got over 100 appearances across MLS and all competitions with Orlando and Colorado. Where is he going to fit? Is he a depth piece? Is he a starting piece? Where do we see Santos fitting into the squad?
It's kind of interesting because we're bringing in Conrad Vollum. Well, I mean, we're bringing him back. So you would figure and something we talked about last episode was, where does Conrad Vollum fit? Well, obviously he's going to have to be our left back because we don't have any left back depth. And then you would have Thomas Totland on the right side. And to me, that should still be the pairing. But Rafael Santos is someone that has put in a lot of minutes in MLS. He's not, someone that is just waiting for his chance to break out. Like, this is a guy that's been a regular for a lot of his career. And so, honestly, I file this, Jeremy, under good problem to have. Because and I forget who's the one that has the graphic of all our left backs from time gone by on the back of the jersey. I mean, you think you're talking about Johnny Nelson, you're talking about Selmir Pedro, the GOAT, you're talking about Anthony Marcanic, you're talking about Jay Reed, you're talking about Kyle Hebert, which the less Kyle Hebert as a fullback, the better. No offense, Kyle lovers out there. You have I think Nerwinski even put in a shift at left back at some point. I am forgetting a bunch of them because we've had, quite frankly, a bunch of Nicholas Durr. I mean, who can forget him? I mean,
Padelford.
Padelford. Well, Padelford was the one that I wanted to come back this offseason. Like, out of everyone that we could have brought back, even Kessler, I was saying bring back Padelford, but that's not going to happen. But yeah, I just like. When was the last time you felt comfortable about our left back situation?
I don't think I've ever felt comfortable about the left back situation. Maybe at the end of last year, but even then, it's like I don't think I've ever really felt comfortable about it.
Giannis Horn, that was another left back, although he kind of evolved into a left center back under Olaf Ball, which was probably his best position anyway because his foot speed wasn't really quite up to snuff for being a fullback. But the only other time I could feel that I was comfortable and like actually enthused about our left back situation was when we had Nicholas Durr. And because Nicholas Durr came in with a lot of hype and a lot of, at least in my opinion, had a lot of hype for someone at his level. He to me, there was nothing separating him and Thomas Totland whenever we signed them both. That was going to be the Scandinavian duo at our, left back and right back. And it just didn't work out for Nicholas Durr for reasons that I don't think we'll ever fully understand. So for us to come into the season with Conrad Vollum and Rafael Santos as our left back situation, absolutely amazing, and I'm all for that. And another shrewd thing, Jeremy, he does not occupy an international roster slot, does he?
Nope, he acquired his green card in August. So in August, he was traded from Orlando City SC to Colorado Rapids. He only appeared in 7 games for Colorado. That initial transfer fee was, I believe, $100,000 with incentives of up to $250,000 additional. I doubt very much he probably hit those incentives in just 7 appearances, but it was for up to $350K. So he's a guy that was worth a decent amount of change back then. And then for me, I'm hopeful that it adds stability, it adds flexibility, it adds versatility, and helps Yohan Demay get the most out of this team and makes them more dynamic, whether it's both offensively, but then also stable defensively.
Well, and that's the thing with Santos is, just based on what we've been able to kind of read about, his playing style. Like, don't count on him necessarily for the defensive side of the ball, but, if DeMay rolls out a wingback formation where we're playing three in the back, Santos seems like someone that would be pretty good playing up, especially Jake, because this guy has a golden left foot. He's a free kick specialist, and Jake, he's got a rocket. I'm really excited to see him outside the box.
Yeah, I get flashbacks to 2022 with City 2 and Selmir Pedro against the Earthquakes. That goal lives rent free in my head. So that exact goal reminds me of this.
I will say that was one thing Pedro actually did pretty well. He was a good free kick taker.
Yeah.
I wish he did more better. Anyway, that's our Selmir Pedro moment for the show, by the way. But he's not the only. These aren't the only signings, that we have to talk about. Which, once again, sometimes as podcasters, we get bad luck and we don't have anything to talk about. But now we've had 2 episodes where we have a lot of good stuff to talk about. We're just getting started. By the way, I went ahead and dropped the STL Soccer News YouTube in the chat. If you want to click on that, subscribe. I see 11 of you are watching from the Soccer Zombie YouTube. So if you're watching from the Soccer Zombie YouTube, go ahead, click that link, subscribe to STL Soccer News, because this is the last episode of Red Smoke Rising on the Soccer Zombie YouTube. So just a fair warning, but there's 76 of you watching. Thank you so much for joining. And speaking of joining, Jeremy, tell us a little more about who else might be coming in.
So, yeah, the 2 that are still rumored to be joining the club, one of them reportedly much closer than the other is Dante Polvara, 25-year-old midfielder, most recently at Aberdeen, which, if that name sounds familiar, it's for good reason. Our buddy Lutz Pfannenstiel, the former All for City sporting director, is the sporting director there over in Scotland. But, yeah, the 25-year-old American midfielder is rumored to be inbound. Most recent reports from Scotland say he was flying to the States today, expected to be signing a multi-year contract that would see him with under contract through, I believe, the 2028 season, with a further option for 29 at last report. But yeah, he's a guy that's featured 86 times, I think it is, for Aberdeen. He scored a goal in their Scottish Cup win from the spot to help them earn that trophy. He's had some other goal contributions, I think 4 and 13 appearances between the Europa and the Conference Leagues in Europe. Impressively, he went straight from Georgetown in 2021 to Aberdeen. He was the Mac Herman Trophy winner at Georgetown, and he actually grew up coming up playing through the NYCFC Academy. So he's a guy that we'll get more on later, potentially. We've got some high remarks from folks that have been close to the NYC pipeline that gave us some thoughts on Dante Polvara. The other guy, which we'll dive into those now, we have thoughts from first the Aberdeen podcast over in Scotland. Here we go, saying that he's a versatile player. He played most recently for them at center back, physical and willing to do things, but their opinions on the quality will vary based on who you talk to. So there's some inconsistency concerns. I asked where they thought he was best played. They said probably as a 6, citing his defensive capabilities and that some of his game may wander based on the structure and what your needs are systematically. Then Paul Harvey. So Paul Harvey is a guy who's done work for the ASA, but he also writes for the Outfield. He's watched Paul Vara closely, saying, I like him. He's an academy product, as we mentioned before. Said he thought he'd sign with NYCFC coming out of Georgetown. But I've followed him closely since. As a pro, he's been adequate going forward, but much stronger defensively. Saying, quote, Polvara has more experience as an 8, but think his skill set is best deeper, especially in the MLS. He's very physically gifted. Aberdeen has been kind of messy for years, and Polvara has had injury issues. So there isn't really a fully complete picture of what he can do, end quote, from Paul Harvey of the Outfield. So all things considered, guys, this sounds like a solid depth piece, maybe someone who can competes for time with Durkin and Edelman.
Yeah, and that's key right there. And I will, first of all, I want to point out, Aaron Leak, do we have Jerry staking out flights at the airport right now? In the case of Polvara, we don't need that, because according to Larry Henry Jr. on X today, Polvara is already If he isn't already in the United States, he was en route to the United States today, and basically confirming that Povara is going to be signing with St. Louis City. And one thing that's kind of key to note about this signing, and I've gotten confirmation elsewhere on this, is that St. Louis wasn't the only club interested in Povara from MLS. He had some interest from other MLS clubs as well, and so there he is. Obviously, when you're in Povara's position, you can pick, where your destination is, and he's picking St. Louis. And one of those reasons, Jeremy, that you just mentioned is the fact that he has a real chance of getting playing time right away because so you have Edouard Leuven, who is our talisman 8 in the middle, but we know that he is dealing with personal family problems, problems that forced him to miss a lot of time last year. And of course, we wish him nothing but the best and his family nothing but the best with what he is dealing with right now. But at the same time, one of the things that you heard me complain about last year when we signed Alfredo Morales was it didn't feel like we had an adequate preparation for that. We've never, just like we've never had really good left back depth. Our center midfield depth has always been on the thin side, way more thin than I would like, and I think a lot of fans would be comfortable with. So Povara is someone that just based on some of the things that you said, Jeremy, and also some of the things that I've been able to find, is he can be. He's more of a 8 in terms of a center mid, where he's not a true holding 6. But if we are going to be playing deeper center mids like we have tended to in the last couple of years, it sounds like Povara sounds like someone that could handle that role. Just don't have him be your primary defensive 6 per se. I like this signing a lot. The price is right. $200,000 isn't much. We don't have to, pay for an international slot. We're locking him down for a few years, and it just if he's not starting right away, we've got some peace of mind at center mid finally, because we've had Indy Vasilev having to play as a center mid a lot in that expansion year just because of injuries and whatnot, and just a lot of players, like Alfredo Morales put in a valiant effort in 2025, but he was literally on his last legs, and so he wasn't expected to play as much as he did last year, and that's just because our depth hasn't been there. And then you have someone, Jake, like your boy Tomas Ostrak, who, remember, when we signed Ostrak, he was a 10. And I think he still profiles best as a 10, but we've had to play him as an 8 because we've had no one else. So one thing, that you can talk about, Jake, is the fact that maybe this frees up Ostrak to play his preferred position.
And yeah, I mean it does, but the other thing is Ostrak has to be healthy first.
Well, that's kind of important, yeah.
Yeah, he as we've heard from coach, he's not gonna he's in doubt for the first game of the year. So, but I did have a question about Povara for you guys. Do we know if he can fit on the supplemental slot, or will he be a senior slot kind of guy? Because I feel like that would change a lot of the roster makeup.
I would imagine it's going to come down to fee and salary. I don't know all the specifics. I'm fully expecting to be it. When we'll get to that in a little bit, but I think he'll be a senior roster slot. I don't think he'll be supplemental. A lot of what I'm hoping for from a roster perspective is under the impression that one of Ben Lunt or Josh Yarrow would be supplemental, and Paul Vara would be just like the other guy that's potentially coming inbound, taking up a senior slot. But I do, Tom, you mentioned Tomas Ostrak. I do want to also add, because I forgot to work this into our show notes. He and Falufal are shut down for the preseason. That did happen since the last show we've had. I believe they announced it I want to say it was Thursday during media availability. Yoann Demay breaking that news to reporters, both having unspecified leg injuries and unlikely to play in the season opener as a result. But the question I have, putting Ostrak aside, is there potential that this frees up Edu Leuven to play in a more advanced role? He was the leading progressive passer, or among them, for City last year. He's, going back to 2023, one of the best offensive passing players that we have. If we're playing a formation that is going to be dependent on, let's say, two narrow 10s, would it make sense to plug him in an advanced role?
I mean, potentially. And again, this is, as Jake was saying earlier, it really all depends on what DeMay rolls out, because there's a lot we don't know about exactly how we're going to play, what style of play, what formation we're going to play. It's just a lot remains to be seen. And again, I just worry about relying on Leuven too much just because of what he's got going on in his personal situation. Now, he's been very present in training camp. He played against New York Red Bulls. So, I mean, it seems like for now, I mean, we can count on him, being in the lineup. It would be nice to see him freed up to play a more offensive role. And if we are satisfied with our 3 in the back system, if that is indeed what we go with, and we have capable bodies back there, which we lacked under Olaf, it would be nice to see Leuven unlocked a little bit. But as it stands right now, it just, I mean, it sounds like a cliche, but it really just remains to be seen. But as Kayla said in the chat, the best ability is availability.
That's true. And again, Polvara is a guy that has had a little bit of injury history, not significant enough to ward us away, but injury history in St. Louis kind of goes together like peanut butter and jelly, right?
Exactly.
But I do real quickly want to make mention, and Jake, did you have something?
Oh, yeah, I just want to say, people tend to forget that Joachim Nilsson didn't have any injury history prior to that initial leg injury. So
yeah,
it's kind of like a who knows.
Neither did Rasmus Alm either, but
right. Thank you, San Jose. Thanks, San Jose. That closed door friendly last year. But no. So the other, if you're watching the stream on YouTube, we want to real quickly pivot to the other gentleman on our graphic. It's Mamadou Mbake Fall. So this is a signing I'm actually very, very excited about. He is a 23-year-old Senegalese center back, no relation to Fallou Fall. They share the same last name. Did do a little research, talk to a friend who mentioned that Fall is akin to like a name of Jones or Smith in America. So it's very common because they literally are from the same city in Senegal. And I believe it's Rafik. But that notwithstanding, my pronunciation aside, this guy is rated as the top ball-playing center back in the Segunda Division, which is the 4th tier of Spanish football based on information from Ben Griffith's Best 11 scouting site. So he comes highly rated. He's a right-footed center back, so he would be that number 1 right center back if we're going in a back 3. Gives Yoann Demey options to play the ball out of the back. He's scored. He's been playing for Barça Athletic, which is the Barça B team for Spain. So everyone knows Barcelona. Their reserve team plays in the 4th division in Spain currently. Just a real quick history on where he's played. He originally started in Las Vegas, moving up to LAFC, where he made 42 appearances and racking up 7 goal contributions in 2,700 minutes. He was loaned to Villarreal, where he had 3 goals in 25 games for Villarreal B, their reserve team. He came back for a short time, ultimately was loaned to Barcelona, where he again impressed enough to eventually be purchased and made a full-time player for Barcelona in their reserve level. He's not cracked through with the first team, but he's made more than 60 appearances at that level. Playing style wise, and this credit the Barcelona fans on Reddit, because it was just ironically around the same time this news broke, they posted a feature thread on Mbake Fall. So it was very fortunate that I just stumbled across their Reddit page. But they cite his aerial ability. He's a beast in the air, and I believe Chris, again, St. Louis Soccer News threw up some stuff. Go ahead, Tom.
I was just going to say, one of the things that really excites me about Fall, and really all 3 of these signings, I feel are just like they all bring something different that we haven't had before. Santos giving us actual honest-to-goodness left-back depth. Polvara giving us actual honest-to-goodness center midfield depth that you wouldn't hate playing. Fall 2.0. I'm calling him Fall 2.0 because SEL Soccer News, he posted some clips of Fall on set pieces, and it made me realize that, and guys, you can correct me if I'm wrong, have we ever really truly had an aerial threat on set pieces like Fall? Like, I know Tim Parker, again, he got the first ever St. Louis City goal, off a set piece, but he wasn't known for that. before he signed here. When was the last time we had someone like Fall that you can just put in the box and just make him your target man on set pieces? Anyone?
I'm going to argue that the issue for us isn't who the targets are, because you've got Baumgartel, you've got Klauss, you've had Henry Kessler, who was decently sized. To me, it's an issue of service, consistent service on those set pieces, more so than it is who we have or haven't had. But that notwithstanding, the consistency of him to put the ball in the net, we have not had.
JT in the chat saying Adinarin. That was no. Adinarin was a big guy. He was tall. I would not say he was physical per se. He was a gazelle trapped in a 6'4" player's body. So I know what you're saying there, JT, but Sam was not. He was never a physical type of a forward, in my opinion.
We also had that Joachim Nilsson. I'm bringing him up again, but we had that Joachim Nilsson bicycle kick against the LA Galaxy. So that was something that happened.
That was definitely something that happened. It was definitely a very. Maybe we should have like our Joachim Nilsson memories, in the final third instead of Klauss, because I think every one of us would probably say the bicycle kick on that one, because that's all we can remember.
Oh, and the two next pro goals in back-to-back games.
That's true.
That's true. Yeah, no. So, but those are the two guys we're linked to. Mbake excites me. Again, aerial ability, ball distribution, very physical. They noted his composure too, saying he's very composed on the ball. So I'm excited about that. Just real quickly, we're going to dive into the roster. Mentioning Conrad Vollum is back, so we did complete that permanent transfer of Conrad Vollum for an undisclosed fee. He's under contract, which we'll get to with this as we pull up the roster here. He's under contract through June of 2029. City also locking up midfielder Daniel Edelman as well. Edelman signed through 2029 with a club option for 2030. He will not occupy a U22 slot. Matt Baker confirmed that as well when that deal was announced. But looking at the roster, guys, so this is as of just before showtime. This is the closest to an up-to-date roster that we could possibly see. We have one senior roster spot open, assuming that one of Josh Yarrow, and I put Yarrow on the supplemental here in this graphic, but assuming one of Yarrow or Lunt are a supplemental slot player, we would have, if we land both Paul Vara and Mbake, it would leave us one senior roster slot open, which could be used for either a U22 or a DP. And we would also have two supplemental slots open, assuming, again, that we do sign Zach Lillington, who was a super draft pick and by all accounts is highly rated by the club. So that's where the roster stands. So my question that I asked to you, that the senior spot that's open, the two international slots that's open, the flexibility there, what's the position of need? Is it an obvious striker, or do we think there's still a gap somewhere else?
I would say, and Jake, you can kind of, refute this if you want, but I think you need someone to fill Klauss's spot at striker. And I'm not confident about our striking options I think we need to get someone in. And if it's a DP or a U22, make it happen. What do you think, Jake?
I would absolutely agree. I would not be opposed to a U22 striker. That would be, I would love that, actually. A U22 striker would be where I would go, at least.
Well, and the only other player I would say I would want on that senior roster slot would be Henry Kessler, but it sounds like he's preparing for a basketball career, because he was photographed at Chaifetz Arena playing basketball on the Billikens court there. So you were talking about his good size earlier, Jeremy. He might be a good maybe a two guard, maybe a small forward type. Hopefully, we never have to find that out before he comes back.
Sharma.
No, I agree. I think the one thing that I do want to call out, though, as we talk about this roster, because I agree, I think it's got to be an attacking option, whether it's a winger or a striker. But I think the thing that I've noticed a trend, guys, if you look at the players that we've locked up so far, Edelman He's now signed for a few seasons. I think he's the only City player currently with an option to take him into 2030, which I just noticed my typo there, but we're going to ignore that. But Rafael Santos has options that could see him here through the 28-29 season. The reported contract for Dante Polvara would keep him here potentially through 2029. Falou Fall is locked up through 2029. This, to me, screams Corey Ray in some respects, starting to lock up what could be the new core of this roster.
Potentially, and also, keeping us out of situations like we found ourselves going into this offseason where you had so many expiring contracts and we were in between regimes. So we had technical directors that were going to the Navy making our some contract decisions, some better than others. So it seems to me that Corey Ray really wants to bring in some stability, with a lot of these moves. And one thing to also consider as well is, we still have McNaughton as a trialist. We have a new trialist that's in there as well. I've heard it might be a center back or at least a defender, but that's another option. And then, of course, you have Parker Alt, who is a youngster that is in as a trialist, would be a striker option, someone that I'm really curious to see how he does fare in camp as to where he does end up, whether it's City 2 or whether it is the main roster. But we can kind of talk about the preseason game that has taken place. And of course, it wasn't broadcast anywhere. So we just are kind of going off of highlight clips and Twitter basically on this. So the first game of the preseason is in the books this past Saturday. It was against Red Bull New York, and St. Louis City lost 3-1. The season's over. RIP. See you in 2027. Oh, wait, it's preseason. Calm down. And also, this is proof. This is something that cannot be captured on tape. And I guess it's a good thing this wasn't broadcast because Roman Berkey made a penalty kick save in this one. So we don't have any actual recorded footage of this happening. So it's like if a tree falls in the forest, does it make a sound? If Berkey makes a penalty kick save and it's not recorded, did it happen? I'll believe it, if someone actually does have footage of it. But just some real quick, notes on the game. Celio Pompeu getting a goal, which I think is encouraging because he is someone that I think, we were kind of joking before the stream about how hockey fans like to yell "shoot," at Blues games. Well, Celio's someone that I wish would shoot the ball more. Honestly, like he's a very unselfish player and he likes to be creative and beating off the dribble. But like we know, he scores bangers. He's got that in his locker, and I think with him it's just a matter of confidence. And so he gets a goal for St. Louis City early on. That's a good sign. But one thing I noticed, Jeremy, is that all three goals that we let up were basically almost carbon copies of each other. It was Cade Cowell, looked like it was like a counterattack maybe, penetrating into the box, passing it to his left, finding someone on the back door, wash, rinse, repeat. Is there anything we can really make off of that?
I don't know. Again, it's so early. First preseason game, first competitive non-training experience for this club, for these players. A new system for many of them, most likely. Again, we didn't see it, we couldn't, so we're making assumptions, right? But I think it's safe to assume that we've got guys that are learning. We've heard as much from Edu Leuven about the learning that's going on in camp, and they had really just begun. If we rewind going into the game, earlier in the week we had heard, or the week before, DeMay is like, we're just now introducing defensive things into our training because the first days of camp in St. Louis were all about spacing and getting guys comfortable with each other and learning their relationships. Now they're putting defensive things intact, and so I'm not surprised to see it be this way. And what's interesting was that all three goals came in the first half. That's the interesting thing to me.
Yeah, and again, I don't know how much because I think Ben Lunt was in goal for the first half, and so and none of them didn't really look like his fault or anything. It just may have been just one of those things that happened. By the way, I have to correct myself. It's Palmer Alt, not Parker Alt. we were talking about Red Bull New York, so I had Tim Parker on the brain. Apologies for that. But just looking ahead real quick at what's left for preseason for St. Louis, Game 2 is going to be actually Wednesday against the Tampa Bay Rowdies. They return to St. Louis for more training on Thursday, then head to Coachella in February. Games in California include February 4th versus Portland, and then Coachella will be February 7th against Austin, February 11th against Joao Klauss and the LA Galaxy. And then finally, February 14th versus DC United. So that is the preseason coming up here. Also coming up is St. Louis City 2. So the schedule is out for St. Louis City 2. And Jake, we've been kind of talking about this. It's going to be a kind of a new look City 2 this year. And a lot of that, Jake, is on the strength and hopefully fruits of our academy.
Yeah. Get ready to hopefully see a lot of Eddie Niles and, well, maybe not so Eddie Niles, but more so Lorenzo Cornelius. I'm really excited to see what he can bring at this level, and I do like the two guys they did bring in Riley Lynch and Patrick McDonald. So those are really someone that I'm looking forward to seeing.
Now Eddie Niles, he's kind of a center mid 10. Is that correct?
Something like that, yeah. And
Yeah.
he's also 14, so that's why I'm not too focused on him playing this year for City 2. So,
but we have seen a little bit of Lorenzo Cornelius because he has gotten some time with the U.S. youth setup, and he is someone that if we're thinking maybe as a Mekhi Joyner replacement on City 2, he plays that wing role. So like I'm expecting him to step up
for sure, and I also think Riley Lynch could be one of those winger replacements for a Joyner, or maybe even McSorley. You could go Lynch one side, Cornelius the other. So I think it also all depends who else they bring in. So we don't know the full City 2 roster yet.
Yeah, we definitely don't. I mean, it could be, Palmer Alt might be someone that, gets signed to that role because, again, Jaskalainen is off to Sporting Jacksonville with all his other City 2 friends. We're expecting McSorley and Joyner to get promoted as well. But, talk a little bit about, so City 2, we got the preseason schedule up on screen for you. Tell us what's to come with City 2 this preseason.
So we've got the preseason opener against Dynamo Dos on February 11th. That'll be none of these games are streamed except the February 20th game against Indy 11 is open to Indy 11 season ticket holders. But the camp has already started. Like, it started on January 19th. So that they're ready to go. I'm not entirely sure why they haven't released not the lineups, the rosters, but
I was gonna say I'm really curious. Like, is there like 5 players in camp right now? Like, I'm really because I know on the main roster there's a couple of young players that are on the main roster. Like McPartland is up the main roster training.
McPartland, Alex Jund is also up there.
Yep.
And yeah, I really the only 3 guys we know that are signed on City 2 specific contracts are Riley Lynch and Colin Welsh and Patrick McDonald.
Mm-hmm. And Jake, Tom, is Cooper Forcellini. He was another super draft pick. I think I've heard a little bit of conversation about him maybe landing with City 2. Do we think, speculative, of course, but do we think that might be where he lands as well?
I mean, just kind of, when you showed that roster and how it's kind of starting to form, like I'm having a hard time seeing where Forcellini exist on it at this point, honestly. Like I would think Lillington might make it. You know, it really just kind of depends on what the club feels about Lillington and his progress right now. But he's someone that like you look at and just think, you know, he has a good camp, he makes it onto the main roster. And especially if Falou Fall is going to be out, then you know we need another defender, and that's how this club sees Lillington as a defender. But as far as Forcellini goes, I mean, he is someone that, you know, he plays kind of a center mid, you know, defensive mid kind of a role. And so remember, if you watched any City 2 last year, that position was held down by really three players. You had Miggy Perez, who I would expect probably goes back to City 2 this year if he doesn't get loaned out again, which I honestly, the last time we loaned him didn't work out so well. You had Mateo Kidd, who has moved on, and he hasn't landed anywhere yet. And then you have Seth Antwi, who has moved on, and I don't think he's landed anywhere yet either. So you have a lot of openings in the midfield for City 2 right now, and I would expect to see Forcellini. If I had to guess on the home opener, which we can talk about the schedule a little bit, Jake, against a very familiar friend of ours from across the state, I would almost expect that opening lineup to have Forcellini and Miggy as our center midfield tandem.
I actually would disagree.
Oh, okay.
Because we brought in Patrick McDonald, and he is a CDM. So I think we could see Miggy on one of the like midfield wings.
Okay.
So like I know he was out there a couple times last year. So I really think that there's a solid chance that the CDM pairing is Forcellini and McDonald.
And you bring up a good point about Miggy as well, because I remember talking to Kaylor Hodges, who is a host of the USL show, but he's also a big Birmingham Legion supporter, and that's where Miggy Perez was in 2024. And one thing that he told me about Miggy Perez when he was in Birmingham was he seemed to be more comfortable out on the wings. And so is he someone, maybe, Jake, that you see maybe attempting to be one of our wing backs, maybe even?
And I could see that because the guess for the first preseason game on the first team, I had guessed he was on one of those wingback roles in that first 11. So I could totally see it, but you also have Tyson Pierce.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out.
And Pierce is someone too that, like Jeremy, like we're looking at in the reckoning as a potential main roster guy, at least as a backup wing back at this point.
Right. Well, and I think the key thing is we've talked through a couple of names just now that if these guys, so the roster, not to go back, but if we talk about the roster for just a split second, there's a mechanism on there for slot 31.
Mm-hmm.
One of those two guys can go into that slot, which would then free up an additional supplemental roster slot. So just calling that out because we want to talk roster flexibility. And I just saw Aaron Hansen talk about this in the chat, I think it was. If we're talking about flexibility, you're 100% right. You want to make sure that you're maximizing the minutes that you have available from that supplemental roster. So I think it is very likely that we see one of Miguel Perez, Tyson Pierce, and God, I really would hate to see it, but he might need it for development, Caden Glover take that slot, because I think Glover is a big one that needs the time and needs the development, because we've really seen him stagnant for more than a season and a half now, I feel like.
Last year that slot 31 was taken up by Miguel Perez.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And I will say I need Caden Glover it's Glover, as we discovered this year. I need him to pan out because, my retirement is hinging on him right now. I bought a lot of his rookie cards. But, unfortunately, he is someone that has really kind of stagnated a little bit. And if there is, we were talking about attacking opportunities, Jake, with Yaskalainen out of the way and McSorley and Joyner going up. Like, this has to be kind of a make or break year for Glover, doesn't it?
It really is. And one thing I want to note about Glover, he has played the 10 a little bit. So with Juan Kazane leaving, that opens a slot for him there.
That's true.
I mean, if all goes to the striker and you have Glover at the 10. What do you think?
So you bring up an interesting thing about Glover at the 10 because I remember a couple winters ago he had a signing at the pavilion with Tyson Pierce, and Glover, like right before then, he played in, I think it was a playoff game where he set up a really nice goal by Mekhi Joyner. And Glover was playing as a 10, playing underneath the striker. And I talked to Glover about that, and I was like, hey, do you like being a 9 or do you prefer being a 10? And he smiled and he said, I like the 10 because I get to have the ball more. So I mean, I think we look at Glover, Jake, as someone that like he's tall, he's got a bit of size. Maybe he just doesn't use it very well, but I'm wondering, Jake, if maybe he is really just a 10 trapped in a 9's body.
Yeah, I think with Juan Kazan leaving, it'll be his role to lose, depending on uh who else is on the roster.
Yeah, and that really depends. By the way, schedule is up, and I will say, if you're looking to watch good soccer on the cheap, St. Louis City 2 is probably one of the best deals you'll find like anywhere at any level, because for $99 you get a season ticket to all 14 home games at Energizer Park. And it's a great way. They play a lot of Sunday afternoon games, which means you can park on the street for free right outside of Energizer Park. You get to go in. You can bring in your Yeti mugs. There you go, Aaron Leak. I said Yetis, so you better not leave this show. But you can use your Yeti mugs for City 2 games. They've got kids' activities. They usually have, like, Wally's is open, a couple stands that are open as well. And, you're not up on your feet and chanting the whole time, but it's a good laid-back way to watch some good soccer. But, like, if you get a season ticket, it's just $7, like, per game to get in. Like, in this economy, it's a great deal.
And
It's
Wally's is legit.
Yeah, it's good value. The concessions are more affordable for City 2 games. They've really done a great job of making. They won an award for making that experience as family oriented as they did. But I think the real quick question I have for you guys, we talk about SKC, our rivalry with the Blue People from Kansas, all that great thing. I almost think for the games I've watched for City 2, I almost argue Ventura County's a bigger rival than Sporting SKC for City 2, just because it seemed like those games against Ventura are always chippy. I remember 2 years ago, I think it was, there was a game where each team had 2 or 3 red cards. It was feisty.
Yeah, there was almost like a brawl in that one, wasn't there, Jake?
Yeah, I don't necessarily remember the brawl, but I do remember a lot of red cards in that game.
So, I don't know. I just didn't know what your thoughts were on that.
Yeah, and you bring up an interesting point too, because I actually went to the away City 2 game at SKC2 at Swope Park. It was just brutal weather. Like, it was very windy, and I was going to vlog it, but it just didn't turn out very well. But there's never been any spice with City versus SKC2, and I think part of that just because SKC2 has been terrible. I think Jake, remind me, were they the wooden spoon winners for MLS Next Pro last season, or were they or were they pretty close to that?
If they weren't, it was really close because they did lose their coach. He was fired, I believe, at around mid-season.
Well, yeah, and of course, let's not forget that City 2 is going to have proven MLS winner David Critchley as the head coach for this season. So it's nice to see that he is staying in town. But yeah, I mean, I'm really looking forward to seeing City 2 this year. I'm actually more excited about the City 2 team more than really the other years, just because I know it's been kind of tailored to be a team that wins, and of course you want to bring fans in and you want to have people watch good soccer. But anymore, I go to watch how the youngsters are doing. And so you're talking, Jake, about Lorenzo Cornelius getting a chance to break out this year. Lorenzo Chavez is someone that we haven't mentioned, but Emiliano Chavez. Thank you. I'm thinking Cornelius. Emiliano Chavez are potentially left back of the future. Got a little bit of time last year, but I want to see him take a step up this year. I want to see Forcellini and I think that's going to be his best chance to get playing time. Glover, I want to see him take a step forward. I think everyone wants to see him take a step forward, just to, at least if nothing else, give us some hope that he'll live up to his homegrown contract. But a lot of good storylines going into the City 2 season, and I do want to leave off the podcast portion of this episode by mentioning another City 2 player, and that is Stone Marion. Stone Marion, formerly of the St. Louis City Academy, was signed to a City 2 deal last year, and technically he was signed from Boff St. Louis. He had been loaned to Boff St. Louis for the Midwest Premier League season, and I bring them up. And this goes out to all of you that love to beat your chest about our Open Cup history. Well, you get a chance to see grassroots St. Louis soccer, amateur soccer, just like Cudish, just like Simpkins Ford, just like Stellan Steel. In 2026, you get to see an amateur team in the U.S. Open Cup proper again, because Boff St. Louis will play in the first round of the U.S. Open Cup on Wednesday, March 18th at Lindenwood University against USL League One's Union Omaha. And if that team's familiar to you, well, St. Louis City has played Union Omaha twice in the Open Cup already, 2023 and this past season. So if it's the Open Cup and it's St. Louis versus Omaha, it has to be played in St. Louis. It's just the rules. But Boff St. Louis, in case you don't know who they are, and in case you haven't, heard me, just brag about the Midwest Premier League to death already, they entered the Open Cup qualifying this year, and they beat Woodland FC out of Kansas City. They beat Omaha Street, another non-league team out of Omaha, and they beat Chicago House, a team owned by Peter Wilt, and actually was a former Nissa professional team, a few years ago. But they qualified for the Open Cup proper by beating those three teams. And Lindenwood University, by the way, if you know, St. Louis FC, any St. Louis FC fans in the chat right there, raise your hands. You know Lindenwood University very well, because in 2019, St. Louis FC beat Chicago Fire in the Open Cup at Lindenwood University. Boffs, just to give you a little bit of more, as we wrap up the podcast portion, amateur side, they play normally out of St. Mary's High School in South St. Louis, but this is going to be a nationally televised match. Boffs and Union Omaha, so they needed a bigger venue for that, and they're playing at Lindenwood for that. But this will be just one of two Open Cup matches on this particular night that will be on the CBS Scalazzo network and Paramount Plus. So again, I say, if you say you support St. Louis soccer and you support the history of St. Louis soccer and you support the Open Cup, it is time to back up your words by supporting a true grassroots club playing for Open Cup glory. Boffs versus Union Omaha, March 18th. Thank you for listening to my Tom Talk.
I will be there. Tickets are $15 a piece.
And they are on sale now. They are on sale now. In fact, if Jake or Jeremy, if you actually, Jake, you have the link to that, right?
I do not, actually.
Okay. It is. We'll put it in the Red Smoke Rising Discord, which does exist now, by the way. And if anyone wants an invite to that, message us on social media. We have to be a little careful about sending Discord links out in public because spam bots are kind of a thing. But yeah, we'll put a link in the Discord chat. You can also look it up on Boss has a website as well. So very exciting stuff. Well, for the YouTube portion and the X portion of our viewing audience, stick around. We're going to have the final third coming up where we're going to be talking about Klauss memories, a little talk about GAM. Also, apparently St. Louis City is, they have a USL Championship reserve team now in Jacksonville that we need to talk about. Oh, and by the way, gold kits. We need to talk about gold kits. So stick around for the final third if you're watching live. Otherwise, if you are listening via podcast or watching on demand, drop a like on this. It helps the algorithm out. Also just helps us know that we're doing a good job. Leave a comment. And by all means, subscribe. And of course, make sure you're subscribed to the STL Soccer News YouTube going forward if you want to watch this live on YouTube going forward. But I am your Drogba of Dogtown, Tom Franklin.
I'm your Ronaldo of Bethalto, Jeremy Clements.
I am the forgetful of name. I already forgot it. But I'm Jake Henry, Stelmer Pedro, the GOAT.
The Chris Wood of Crestwood.
Yes, that.
And thank you to the dog leash of the Metro East, Chris Gebhardt, for keeping us on the air. And thank you for joining us for another episode of Red Smoke Rising. And remember, always keep moving forward. All right. Beer's out. Relax your shoulders. Give them a good roll. Roll your neck around a little bit. It's time to relax because the business portion of our show is over as we get to interact with chat a little bit more here. Thank you so much for keeping everything going tonight, by the way. You guys have been active once again. I am counting 137 of you.
Whew.
That are watching right now. And I'm going to tell you right now, 9 of you are on the Soccer Zombie YouTube. So thank you, but stop it. I'm gonna put a link to the STL Soccer News YouTube once again. Subscribe to that. Although if you've already subscribed, then you're fine.
Absolute sickos. We've got some sickos in the chat. No, seriously though, much appreciate everyone tuning in, hanging with us on a Tuesday night, hanging out, talking soccer, even before the season gets going.
I mean, Tuesday night at a new time as well.
Exactly. Yeah. And you know what? The funny thing is, one reason we started this show late, I mean, partly because I did have a prior commitment that got canceled, but we started the show late because we noticed our numbers go up throughout the show. And guys, it happened again. Like, more people kept watching as we went on. So, like, Jeremy, are we going to have to go full Top Corner talk here? And
no, we're not on till midnight. But maybe the 8 o'clock starts might be a thing of the future.
We are sickos, but we're not that much sickos. And of course, as Aaron Leak points out, ball watching also was going at the same time, which I did notice a jump like mid-show. So I assume a lot of you are watching ball watching. Give those guys our regards, by the way. But yeah, let's go ahead and I was going to say Tuesday night. What else are you watching? You're certainly not watching the Blues.
Slow.
Are they even? I know they're playing. What was the score of their game?
3-0. Oh wow, they came back. It's 3-2.
Really?
Yeah, it was 3-0 last I checked.
Jeez.
Still 3-2 in the third.
I know. One of my friends, Stephen Bolin, he got like glass seats for like really cheap tonight. And
SLU's playing too. SLU basketball. So that's
SLU basketball needs more love in this town.
Really, they really do. Oh, SLU won.
And SLU won, according to Aaron Ed. SLU won. Let's go.
Wow.
They were losing when I had to come down here. So
they came back from the curse of he who shall not be named. Apparently, he was at the game tonight. And SLU played their worst half of the season and were losing.
Yeesh.
Was the comment I saw somewhere on social media, but I don't want to. If you're a City fan, you might know who I'm talking about. He has a "the" in front of his nickname, but
touchdown.
But yeah, guys, great
89-76 comeback. And by the way, SLU's top 25 rated now, aren't they?
They're 21.
21. Yeah. We have top 25 basketball in our city, and I bet you didn't know that.
Not bad for an A10 school.
Not bad for an A10 school. Not at all. Lifting up the A10 by the bootstraps. Alrighty. Now we gotta let's go back to Joao Klauss. So again, we kind of talked during the show a little bit about how divisive Klauss was and how people had different opinions on him, but he's definitely, like, when you think of all the players that have played for St. Louis City, definitely one of the most memorable, for any reason. It could be his personality. It could be funny things that he said in social media clips or in press conferences. It could be him going after Bradley Carnell earlier this year. It could be some of the crazy goals that he scored. He's scored a lot of bangers, like not just like garbage goals, like MLS goal of the week candidate type of goals. So I'll start off with mine, just because I alluded to it a little bit during the show. But my favorite Joao Klauss moment was Sporting Kansas, April 20th, 2024. It is, I believe it is 1-1. Yeah, it's 1-1 at that point, and we had just scored maybe like 10 minutes before. And ball is in SKC's final third, and Willie Agata ends up with it, and he's kind of trying to run away from Klauss a little bit. And I remember this because I was in City Park West corner. I was there in person for this one, and out of nowhere. And when I say out of nowhere, I mean I didn't even know he was even in the vicinity, but all of a sudden, boom! Just absolutely takes out Willie Agata, and he sets up Celio Pompeu for one of his signature outside bangers that he just loves scoring against Sporting Kansas in Children's Mercy, which I guess it'll be now something else. But I was there in the stands, and I was expecting this one to be called back because of Klauss bodying Willie Agata. Because in the speed of the moment, I mean, Agata just gets absolutely yeeted, out of, basically off his feet. And like, I remember the City Refs video that they did of Agata just like sliding all through like time and space. And it just looked like he wasn't never stopping. It was a memorable moment, and it set up a key goal in a 3-3 draw that Totland salvaged for us in extra time. So it was a key goal, and it was all set up by Joao Klauss. But for me, that's a lore moment, an absolute like one of those like moment in times in St. Louis City's history where you look back on as a defining moment in not just our history, but also in the Kansas rivalry. Because, I remember all the Sporting Kansas fans were upset about, they thought that Klauss should have been fouled. And it's just, for me, that will always define Klauss to me is that goal. Because, again, he doesn't just score goals. He'll get dirty. He'll get into the midfield. He'll try to counter. He'll try to win the ball back. And that, to me, was just vintage Klauss. So that's my moment. Jeremy, you had a more personal moment, though.
I did. I'll get to that. If I'm thinking about games and goals, he had the first game-winning goal in franchise history and down in Austin. But for me, back in 2023, he scored 2 goals in 5 minutes against SKC at home. Both of them were good finishes. Those were some of my favorite moments. He also had...
Was that the one where we scored 4 goals in like 12 minutes? Yeah.
Yes. But yeah, the first goal was a back post volley on a cross from Edu, and the second one was like an outside of the foot finish to the far post.
I was watching. I was standing next to the River City Ramble guys on that one, and let me tell you, the 3 of us achieved nirvana whenever when we scored those 4 goals. Like it was like I almost went into a fugue state over it.
Oh, I can imagine. Oh yeah, no, it was pure bliss, pure magic. Other things, other honorable moments of mentions that come to mind. The teacups it was a coffee cup celebration where him and Betcher and Marcel sat on the end line after a goal this year drinking the tea or the coffee. And so that one, his money celebration was another one this year. But my favorite moment was off the pitch. We talked about it earlier. So there was a VIP autograph thing at one of the events that I think it was this past season. And if I remember correctly, Tom, I think I was there as your +1. But in any event, it was shortly after I think it was Simon Klauss. Klauss had just gotten his hat trick like the week or so before then.
That was a Galaxy game. Yeah.
Yeah. So Klauss and Betcher are at the table together for their autographs, where people can walk through and do their autographs. And I don't remember the exact thing that was said that I said to prompt this. But, I think we said, like, congratulations on your hat trick or something like that. And he looked at Simon and he goes, can you believe this guy? He's been with me all week. Not a single thing nice he could say to me about my hat trick, but thank you. But this guy, he can't say anything. And I'm like, dude, that's hilarious.
We never got that buddy comedy with those two, did we?
No, but it was great. I'm going to miss that.
We should all check on Betcher this year because that was his buddy.
Hey, if you looked at the photos from today, he looks like he's been Klauss was replaced by Baumgartel, so another German guy or somewhat German guy has stepped into Klauss's shoes.
Hey, Betcher's got a type. I mean, that's look, that's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. Jeremy, you okay?
I'm good. Jake, what was your favorite Klauss moment?
I've got 2. So, going back to the game I mentioned earlier with the Pedro just banger of a goal, Klauss had a brace that game, I believe. And so after one of his goals, here in it was 2022 at San Jose. After one of his goals, he actually goes up because there was a photographer right behind the goal, or like right off to the side of the goal. After that goal, he goes up to him and just bear hugs him, if I remember correctly. That was just really funny to watch, and I knew like right then it was like, oh, this guy's a character, because we hadn't really seen him before. And then my other memory was actually when they were doing the City Eats tour, basically, and him, Berkey, and Kyle Hebert were all at Beast, and I went up there. There's a picture of me with going in to shake Hebert's hand, and Klaus is just there with the funniest look on his face. And I'm just like, that. It was just great to meet those three, but I'm gonna miss Klaus.
Yeah, Klaus had great sellies. Like on the Celio goal where he bumped Agata. I'll never forget after that goal, Celio jumped up in his arms, and it was so funny because, like, to me, I looked at it as like Klaus had this like proud papa look on his face, and Celio had this like wide-eyed wonderment of a toddler, and it looked like a dad holding his toddler, right after that, and it was like the proud dad and like the bright-eyed, like, happy Celio. Which, let's face it, guys, happy Celio is the best Celio.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt. I mean, everybody knows the iconic, reindeer, I guess is what it was. But that one, I mean, somebody made a hat of that. I don't remember if it was a club or if it was Series 6, but somebody actually put that on a hat.
Yeah, and also shout out to Zach from Florida Noise. If you're watching now or listening later, I know Zach mentioned that his favorite chant, player chant, is not mine, not the zombie chant, which is okay. It's fine, but because Santa Claus is a banger. And we will never get to sing Santa Claus again, and that does make me sad.
Well, okay, hold on. So let's hypothetical. Before the game starts, just hear me out. They come to town October 11th. The Galaxy do.
Mm-hmm.
Would the few folks in the North End that are there early enough consider welcoming Klaus back with that during warm-ups?
I would do it.
I mean, I think that's fair. I mean, once the game starts, you forget it. But, I mean, in a moment of fun and a nice welcome back to St. Louis, he was an OG guy. As of today, the club's leading scorer of all time. That's going to change in time, I pray. But I think that's a good idea.
I'm going to get a little spicy here with this one because of the rumor that you mentioned that, that Baker dropped, about there, being a bit of a fallout between Klaus and the front office. Mm-hmm. When Klaus comes back to St. Louis, does he get a tribute video?
I feel like you have to.
You know what? Yeah, I think this is a case of the club being the bigger man in the situation. I mean, we don't look.
I hope you're right.
Yeah, I mean, I'll put it this way: I don't think things had gotten publicly bad. To me, there was no bad blood. This is a move scene that makes all sides happy. I don't think it's to where there's bad blood between him and the club, maybe between Klaus and one individual in the club.
That's what I was referring to, yeah.
Right. But so if it's in my mind, I don't see why you couldn't do a welcome back. I mean, the Blues do it. The Blues have done it for far lesser players to compare that in the St. Louis franchise way. I don't see why you couldn't do a welcome back thing for Klaus.
And our man behind the curtain, Chris Gebhardt, is like literally like shouting at us from behind the curtain, that has nothing to do with you know who. So yeah, he's probably right. He needs a tribute video, and he needs a proper send off because we didn't expect him to be transferred now. I mean, otherwise, we'd have clapped him off after the October 18th game. And we haven't had a chance to see him this year because we haven't had the usual fan festival, which I guess the Tina Turner thing is maybe going to replace that this year. We'll talk about that a little bit. But I just, I want us to give Klaus a proper send-off, and it does sound like that Galaxy game might be our best chance for that.
No, you're right. And Tom, I just really quickly, we didn't get a chance to share this during the show, so I do just want to quickly mention the timing of this trade.
Mm-hmm.
Because Corey Ray did say today, or in the release, quote, "While we did not plan to make this move ahead of the season, it was an opportunity that made sense for both Klauss and the club, especially with his contract expiring at the end of the season. The funds we receive give us meaningful flexibility, and we're excited to reinvest into the roster as we continue to build and improve the squad." And this next piece, I think, is key over the upcoming transfer windows, plural, because I think he's said multiple times consistently that it's not a one window deal. So,
No.
I thought that was an interesting thing that he said.
And also, this leads into another discussion topic that we had for the final third, Jeremy, and that is we've got a lot of GAM.
So we're going to dive into this kind of beyond surface level, probably not Matt Baker level, because I can't explain it as well as Matt, and I will never try to.
You don't go full
insult.
Baker.
I won't insult Baker by trying, but I will give you the novice for dummies version of that. So general allocation money is one of the mechanisms in which MLS allows teams to use to build their rosters. On January 20th, they listed out the full rankings of how much GAM each team had as of that day. So keeping in mind that this does not include any potential money spent to acquire Conrad Vollum, it doesn't include anything for any of the other potential incomings in Dante Polvara or the rumor for Mbake Fall, nothing to do with the spending on Rafael Santos, and most importantly, probably, it does not include any calculation on what we have to do to pay down the roster charges to become salary compliant by the time the regular season starts. But all of that said, as of January 20th, St. Louis City had just over $6 million, the fifth most amount of GAM available to MLS franchises. So that is a substantial amount to reinvest. If you add on to that, you figure 2.375 million, so that would put us over 8 million now in GAM if we're saying that, just starting with that basic amount that we can say we know. So that puts us at roughly, let's say, almost 8.5 million, right? So that's where we would be. GAM can be used to buy down salary cap. It can be used to buy down transfer and loan fees. It can be used for roster improvements, not just premium slots, but throughout the roster. And you can convert up to $3 million in GAM. So if the 2.375 that we got from Klauss is converted, we're to nearly $8.5 million. That GAM does not expire, so it doesn't have a deadline to be spent by. So that would put us at $8 million, or a little over that, to start the season. Now, moving on to that, depending on the roster model, St. Louis City could see additional GAM. So, as an incentive for choosing the U22 roster model, you can get an additional $2 million in GAM added to that. It's $1 million for the first half, and then if you stick with it at the midway point when you can change your declaration and your model, if you don't, you stick with it, you get another $1 million. That GAM, that $2 million, does expire. So you do have to have a quicker turnaround for that. But ultimately, what I've tried to paint there for you, not in this graphic, but just through speaking about it, is City could catapult itself to near the top of GAM using the available numbers at over $10 million if they use all of the Klauss money plus the U22 roster model. They'd have over $10 million in potential GAM that would be used to then buy their players, buy the roster down, and really give Corey Ray a ton of flexibility as he reshapes this roster. So that's why I thought it was a good time to bring this up, explain what it is, why it's important, and why you have seen multiple people, whether it's me, Baker, Tom, you've had Justin Horniker, Tom Timmerman, all the media folks that you probably follow on city socials, and Jake too. I don't want to leave you out, Jake, because you know everything too.
He's Mr. Cashford.
Yeah, right. He is. He knows all the stuff.
I'm Cashford, not GAM. I'm Cashford, not GAM.
but my point is, this is why it's important. Yeah. So oh gosh, good Lord Almighty.
We don't talk about Tam.
So Tam is team allocated money, and that I would need more information or more time to research, but it's special league funds that you can use to sign or retain high value players and salaries that exceed standard minimum budget charges, but are not designated players. So TAM has less flexibility than GAM.
Yes, and Chris, that is flyover footsie territory. Which, by the way, if someone were to ask, like, "Hey, what'd you talk about on Red Smoke Rising tonight?" Well, we were checking out some gams. We were talking about Bambi legs, and we were talking about players whose types are German. They would think that maybe the show should be called Red Steam Rising because it's kind of steamy in here, with some of the chatter we've had tonight. But yeah, there will be a test on Jeremy's explanation on GAMS. So make sure you, if you want to take notes, listen to the VOD, and we'll you have to get 9 out of 10 right to pass.
Good luck. The one thing to call out about TAM, the reason TAM is going to be important, potentially not this year, but next year, and we won't know this until the salary numbers are released. TAM will become an important conversation at the end of this season when we talk about the potential of buying down Roman Berkey in 2027. Because TAM is what's used to buy down players from designated player status to non-DP status.
By the way,
and TAM is not publicized like GAM is.
True.
By the way, breaking news. Blues are tied 3-3.
Nice.
Whoa. Another overtime loss coming.
I always believed. For 5 seconds, I believed. So yeah, always. Yeah, so that's that situation. And then speaking of situations, so of course, as many of you know, I like to cover more than just St. Louis City. I dip into USL, and I just did a whole rant about why you should watch a local amateur club play soccer. But something that has been very interesting to me this offseason that some have caught up on is the fact that apparently St. Louis City has a reserve team building in Jacksonville, Florida. Not really, but when you look at what Sporting Jacksonville has done this offseason. So, in case you don't know, Sporting Jacksonville, brand new club going into the USL Championship this year. So they're playing in the tier below MLS. As Chris Gebhardt just said, it's City 3 at this point, even though City 3 would be higher on the pyramid than City 2. Again, we're between the GAM talk and the talk about soccer tiers, we're really confusing you guys. So sorry about that. But Sporting Jacksonville, this offseason, they started by loaning in Christian Oliveras, who was our third. Go ahead, Jake.
Dita Armstrong was actually the first.
You know what? Who could forget about Dita Armstrong? You're right. City 2 legend Dita Armstrong signed for Sporting Jacksonville.
One of their first players, actually.
Wasn't he the first? Or like he?
I think they announced him as like one of two.
One of two. Okay.
Yeah, one of those.
Yeah, very early on. So yeah, they're gonna have Dita Armstrong this year. Between the pipes, they're gonna have Christian Oliveras on loan from St. Louis City, which is why Colin Welsh is now our third goalkeeper. But he didn't get a City contract. He's on a City 2 contract, which again, Lutz Pfannenstiel's like, you can do that. But anyway, yeah. So they're gonna have those two. Your boy Jake Juan Kuzain just signed for Sporting Jacksonville, and then their starting striker is going to be Emil Jääskeläinen, formerly of City 2. And I've looked this up, guys, and I looked at the ownership structure for Sporting Jacksonville. I cannot find a connection between Sporting Jacksonville and St. Louis City. But it's just, if you're looking for a USL 2 championship team to support this coming season, and you want to see some familiar faces, Sporting Jacksonville. I guess that's the team you need. But like, guys, like, we've had a lot of City 2 players over the years leave, and like, but they all spread out. Like, I can't remember an exodus like this where they all end up on one team, Jake.
No, there really isn't. Yeah, I don't think it's ever happened.
No, it's not. And like, in the case of like, Jeremy, one thing that I, with Jääskeläinen, he is someone that I thought he did pretty well for City 2. Like, he wasn't like a jump off the page, type, but like he did pretty good for City 2. And I've got to think maybe with him, it's just like, okay, Sporting Jacksonville plays a tier up from City 2. This is a chance for him to shine. He gets to play on an expansion team. He's going to get minutes right away, and weather in Florida is pretty nice.
Yeah, I mean I think Jääskeläinen was initially the first head scratcher for City 2 of the offseason for me, because I fully expected him to be back. I didn't think that it would be a one and done. He was taken in the super draft. He led, I believe it was, all collegiate scorers before being taken in the draft by St. Louis, playing at Akron, if I recall correctly, where he was drafted out of by St. Louis. I thought it would be another year of development, and then I thought he would start to push for a senior roster spot once we moved past Klauss, thinking maybe we'd obviously take a step up from maybe Klauss, but have him as a depth piece before he got surpassed by McSorley. Or as a lot of folks, including our friends in the Fandalorians, call him McScorley. But that all said, no, I'm with you. Jääskeläinen not coming back was a surprise to me. The rest of the turnover at the roster, thinking about the shift of where Corey Ray wants this whole franchise and pipeline to be aligned.
Alignment.
Take a drink. You've seen turnover to get them younger, so I feel like, and I wish I would have had a chance to ask you guys this on the main part of the pod, though. I know we've talked about it before, but what are the expectations for City 2? Because it's a lot of younger guys. Have we shifted from, okay, we're going to seriously challenge every season for next pro, to being more of a developmental team at that level?
I think that was the goal, or originally the goal, back in the 2022 to 2023 transition. This I thought was going to happen back then. So I don't know what changed, but
I've got a theory. So you're talking about, so remember if any of you watched the City 2 games when they were playing at Cordy at SIUE and they were playing at Herman, you had Roman Berkey playing for them, you had Joao Klauss playing for them, you had Silmer Pedro.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I had to take my obligatory drink. You had a lot of main roster guys playing on that team. And so, of course, in 2023, they're playing on the main roster. And when you're a brand new club, you don't have the infrastructure to support an entire youth movement for your MLS Next Pro team. You just don't. Any team that has ever I would be really curious, and this would be a good research assignment for someone, like, look at the expansion teams for MLS over the years and try to see how well their reserve teams did in their first or second year and how they were composed. Because, of course, before an MLS Next Pro, reserve teams will play in the USL. Which was just a different time altogether. But I'm really curious, like, have there been any MLS clubs that have started from scratch, and and how did they treat their reserve teams? Did they bring a bunch of veterans in right away to kind of just keep the team afloat, or did they have a youth setup ready to go? By the way, it's 4-3 Dallas. So Blues hockey. Anyway. But yeah, I would be just really going into that 2023 season for City 2. Like, yeah, you had to go out and get, the Mateo kids and, the Juan Cuzanes, and your veteran types. I mean, Celio wasn't a main roster guy right away. He had to work his way up too. So,
right. But Celio was on the 2022 roster, as was Akil Watts, Kyle Hebert, Juan Cazane, all those guys.
Akil Watts, by the way, who has not signed anywhere yet. I would have thought he was signed in Fort Wayne by now. Brian Betcher signed for Fort Wayne this week.
He signed the ball that's currently on my dresser.
Man, I am sure that is a treasured item.
Mystery box scale.
I got toy shirt on that one, so.
Of all the guys,
I'm sure Kayla just swoons every time she walks by that.
It's her favorite thing that I own.
She like so she likes it more than you. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
that's fair.
Okay, that's fair. Okay, that's fair. I mean, that sounds like a whole nother relationship you got going on there, and I'm not going to get into that. But yeah, no, we're not. Not just kidding. But yeah, I think the point I was going to get at is, you have to get to a point where you feel that your academy is ready to start producing players on a regular basis. Like we've seen dribs and drabs of that from, Mekhi Joyner is now, probably going to be an MLS regular starting this year. And yes, Kayla is confirming that Akil Watt's sign ball is a prized possession. So good to know. But yeah, I think, I mean, Jake, you can make the argument just because you've watched the academy over the years and how dominant that the academy has been at various levels at various points. Maybe now is the time, after a few years of existence where, okay, you don't have to rely on the Mateo kids or the Ryan Betchers or the Cam Sillies of the world. You can actually start to give your youth a chance.
I wouldn't look at the results going into this year if just based on results, because those have been lacking at the U18 level. So, but yeah, I mean, I just I don't know. It's so hard to tell because Next Pro is a league. It should be taken as a glorified academy league with some independent clubs, but I like the winning, but I also want development. So it's kind of like a tightrope to balance.
Yeah, Next Pro is interesting in that, like, it's hard to quantify how great performance in Next Pro translates to MLS sometimes. Like, again, I watched a lot of Brandon McSorley for City 2 over the last couple of years, and I've been like, he's my new Jose Kojima. In fact, thank you, Jeremy, for the lock screen. That's who's on my lock screen, by the way. And yes, I am an Android guy. Deal with it. But I will say that I think McSorley is ready to make the move up now permanently, but it took him a long time to get there. I could, and Caleb McSorley, yes, I got it wrong. I was advocating that McSorley make the roster at the beginning of 2025, but team didn't think he was quite ready yet, and maybe they're right. And it's kind of a slippery slope, guys, because I don't want MLS controlling the entire soccer pyramid of the United States, but you almost are making an argument that maybe MLS should have a Division II level if they want to have like a proper pathway to the pros. Like in NHL, for instance, you have NHL, AHL, ECHL, double A, triple A majors. Baseball, single A, double A, triple A majors. NFL doesn't have that. NBA has the G League, kind of sort of works like that. But really, your examples are baseball and hockey and how to bring up players from a minor league system. And right now, we don't really have that. And so, do you guys think that there should be a better bridge between the reserves and the main roster for MLS? And if so, how do we get there? And see, no one has the answer. So it's, I mean, that's just, I mean, if someone had the answer, they would have figured it out by now. So
I don't, Tom, to answer, I don't know. Yeah. There's so many things. It's partly about control. It's going to be about revenue. What would that look like? I think I've heard so many people talk about, and not to get into this really long, deep conversation, but like, as an owner, you're not going to invest in $1 billion, whatever the value is of an MLS stadium. You're not going to pay the expansion fee for a franchise if you would be relegated. Like, what is that structure like? I know we're not talking necessarily pro rel, but part of development includes making it feasible for the owners to invest money to not only keep results going, but to develop that talent. How do you balance that? How do you do it?
Well, and like Aaron's point here, like you could say that City is kind of a model for at least in terms of like fan engagement, because you are starting out, a lot of kids, for instance, when you're a young child, you have heroes growing up that, you encounter in sports. Like my hero growing up was Brett Hall. Because when I went to the St. Louis Arena and watched Blues games, that guy came through for me, so often. When kids go to City 2 games, like I'm sure Mekhi Joyner, is if he develops, like you're going to have a lot of grade school kids and middle-aged kids that remember seeing Mekhi Joyner in 2024 and 2025 with City 2 scoring big goals to help City 2 win. And then afterwards, he would come around and maybe sign an autograph or something like that. Those moments mean so much to young kids. And so what City I like about City 2 and how they do it right is that they really do kind of cater towards families because you do build that loyalty up that way. And of course, you have the advantage of playing in Energizer Park, which is a great stadium that people want to be at all times. But not every team is going to be like that. Whereas, like I went to Rapids 2 after the Colorado Rapids game that City played at last year. They played the Town. There might have been 10 people in the stands total. Like and Rapids 2 did nothing to activate like the fans at all. Like there was no face painting, there was no kids supporter section, there was no family discounts at the concessions. It was just here's a game. That's basically it. And then you have other teams like Sporting KC 2, they play at Swope Park, which is literally a park. It's basically like Forest Park if there was a soccer field in the middle of Forest Park. That's basically what Swope Park is. You have Atlanta United. They play at Kennesaw State, for their City 2 team, which is like, or their United 2 team, which is like 35, 40 miles away from the town center. So to your point, Jeremy, like we're lucky in that we do have City 2 and we have a ownership group that does, put some time and effort into it, but not every team does. And it's just, there's no perfect solution for it just because not everyone has a shiny Energizer Park that they can lure fans into.
Yeah. They've done a great job of making it accessible, making it something that people want to see. But I don't know, Jake, if the winning isn't there, do we see a drop? I know St. Louis loves soccer. It's the soccer capital of America, but
I think so. As much as I hate to say it, but I could see it totally happening.
Well, if you need evidence that fans love their City 2, I can only look at the numbers of the people watching this right now, and there's 180 people that are watching right now across X and YouTube and this STL Soccer News YouTube, which I'll do it one more time. But I think there is now like double the amount of people watching on STL Soccer News versus the Soccer Zombie YouTube. So I thank you guys for that, really. But yeah, what a turnout tonight. And we're gonna wrap things up here with a little bit of talk about our future away kit. Or maybe it's a third kit. I don't know. But we've gotten a bit of a hint as to what it potentially could be here. So this is from the email that St. Louis City has sent out to its North End season ticket holders. So if you're in the North End and you wanted to go to the San Diego FC game that's happening in March, you've gotten an email already to indicate your interest in that. But the banner of this, guys, is it's clearly they're hinting at gold here. And if you look really close, I mean, for one, the font is gold, but then if you look really closely at the fabric, you can see kind of a ripple, and you see hints of like a darker kind of a gold. And Jeremy, you noticed you spotted something right before we went on the air on the No Goal Patrol Discord that someone shared about this.
Yeah, there was a gold curtain gradient really kind of playing into what I surmise to be kind of a show venue, sort of like you pull back the curtain on something, that kind of a thing. That's and kind of that effect. And I think if you looked at the leaked images, and I don't know that we're gonna show the leaked images, but we've seen a lot of other podcasts talk about those leaked images and show them on screen. So you can go out and find them in the universe somewhere if you want. But that kind of a pattern, that ripple, is really kind of spotted there. There's been a very consistent theme of gold, the word eternal used in reference to an upcoming event with the St. Louis Symphony Orchestra and Tina Turner. It all just kind of points in the direction of gold.
It really does, and it would fit the theme of Tina Turner, and I think it's an interesting theme if we do go with something that's like a Tina Turner kind of a tribute, because when you think of, at least this is me anyway. Y'all can correct me in the chat if I'm wrong, or Jeremy and Jake, you can kind of correct me as well. But like when you think of recording artists that are from St. Louis, like you think of like Chuck Berry, Sheryl Crow, those ties. I feel Tina Turner for some reason always kind of flies under the radar a little bit for some reason. Like we all know who Tina Turner is, but like we don't necessarily associate her with St. Louis a little bit. But I think it's interesting. Now, is it my type? Is it my thing? Betcher likes Germans, so that's his type. But is a gold kit really for me? I don't know. I don't think so. It's really going to have to like wow me in order for me to be interested in it. But where do you guys stand on the potential of a gold kit? Like, are you guys, when you were thinking about adding to your St. Louis City kit collection, was a gold kit in your future?
I agree with what they're talking about in chat. I just hope it's a third kit.
Well, Aaron points out, what does Tina Turner have to do with soccer? One of my favorite MLS jerseys in my collection is the all-black Nashville SC kit, and that is the Johnny Cash tribute kit. It's one of those kits. Was one of those kits that, like, if you look at a photograph, it's like, it's a black kit, whoop-de-doo. But then, like, it's one of those, like, if you like, you see like the little touches for Johnny Cash on it and all that. I like Johnny Cash, so that's also a little biased on it. So I don't mind teams paying tribute to their famous, recording artists or people in their history, but Jeremy, I'm kind of with Aaron on this. What does Tina Turner have to do with soccer?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna reach again and say that it's them trying to reach beyond soccer. Okay, so here's why I say it. So these kits get planned years in advance. They have to be developed. They have to work with the design. They have to see it. They have to use it. They have to plan it. So we've seen them do a minimalistic pattern for the confluence. That was kind of neat. We've seen them try to do something that ties directly into soccer with invisible sashes. That is the kit you're wearing right now. They couldn't do that one well, in my opinion. Now they're trying to do something to step beyond and tie further into the city. And that's fine, but I don't love it. I think my biggest problem with it, and it's part of why I threw this kit on tonight, if you look in the collar, this is a very, very, very electric yellow. That's in our color scheme. Where is the gold in our color scheme? That's my problem. To me, the color gold reminds me of Real Salt Lake. I swear they had a gold kit years ago. That was the first thing that popped into my mind is, if we're going to forget the gold, let's just go if we're going to go yellow or gold, go electric yellow with our club identity. That was, even though I don't like yellow, that I would have rather seen that.
Well, I mean, like the yellow jerseys we wore last show, Jeremy, that's our yellow.
Yeah.
Now, do I necessarily want that as a jersey? And maybe just that's part of why I'm a little apprehensive about gold, is just because I don't think it's anything I'd wear personally. Ryan would want a Navy kit and embrace the river as part of the history. I would rock a Navy kit. Like, blue's my favorite color. Like which I know we're city red, and we got to be careful about Sporting Kansas being the blue guys. Red versus blue is kind of the eternal color rivalry. But I am a sucker for blue.
And I'll say this: so in 2024, Real Salt Lake had a gold kit. Maybe the reason we didn't go with a gold base with, say, river blue stripes and the city red accents, granted it's different shades, but that would have looked almost a carbon copy of this kit I'm looking at right now. So maybe this is gold is to be different. Gold it's a different shade of gold. It's a different design. Maybe the black is to honor something else. Here's the thing. I'll give the club full credit. They're going to come out with something to market this, and they'll do a good job at it, just like they marketed the sashes on this kit, or tried to, and the half collar as a premium element. They will do it. So I'm going to wait. I'm going to see what it looks like. Is it going to be my favorite city kit that I probably at some point will own? No. But, am I going to like it better than the Forever City Red? I don't know. Maybe.
Honestly, I might end up liking this better. And I find that very hard to say because this is not my favorite.
Might be a push for me. We'll see.
We'll see. But anyway, I think we're going to wrap it up tonight. It's almost 10 o'clock. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. This was a great show. We covered a lot tonight, a lot of fun stuff, and of course we had to, talk about Klauss too. But Jake, thank you for the City 2 chat and kind of the insight as to what we can expect from them this year. And really, guys, we'll be back in a couple of weeks in person at Pat Connolly Tavern, 8 o'clock on February 10th. And we look forward to seeing you either there or back online as well. Again, follow the STL Soccer News YouTube for future YouTube episodes, because this is it for the Soccer Zombie YouTube as far as Red Smoke Rising goes. Any last words, Jeremy?
Nope. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Can't wait to see you, hopefully, in person on the 10th. And we've got games on Wednesday. And I can't wait for Coachella because we'll actually see. I think we play Klauss at Coachella, so that'll be our first look at Klauss in a Galaxy kit.
Yep, on February 11th. Jake, any final words?
Yeah, thank you guys for tuning in as always, like my co-hosts have said. And let's go City.
Let's go City. And Chris Gebhardt, thank you for keeping things running behind the scenes and being our man in behind the curtain. And y'all have a good night. And we'll see you again in a couple weeks.